Many of history's greatest achievements were the work of students, whose ideas led to breakthrough insights, and whose curiosity and courage challenged the norm. This is happening less often lately, and we'd like to see more of it, in part because we now know that these acts of creation are the most powerful learning experiences for students anyway, let alone the benefits of whatever they create. Welcome to Surge Streams, an ongoing series by the Student-Run Business Association, whose mission is to help students learn by starting and leading organizations and projects around the world. We're going to do both live and recorded sessions where you'll meet with students, faculty, alum, administrators, people that are challenging the norms in this rapidly growing space of learning by doing. In today's episode, I'm with Davis Marklin. Davis was a student of mine at Marquette University, where he founded a couple of organizations. He graduated in 2018 and has since become founder and CEO of a rapidly growing service business called Turned. Turned is just about at $1 million a year in annual revenues. And Davis has had a lot of success. We're digging into what inspired him to get into this kind of business, which is very different from the others that he was in his past. We're going to talk about some of the hardest times that he's gone through, technically how he managed to operate this business or just start succeeding with it, his recent expansion into Austin, and some other ideas that I think you're really going to enjoy. So with that, enjoy the podcast with Davis Marklin. This is Surge Streams episode 2. All right, and we're live. Good to see you, Davis.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I was excited to invite you on because you have a great story of going from SRB. You did a little bit of exploring, but really into, you went from blockchain, and I've got the photo. I know you saw it earlier. How do I?
Yeah. Hijacked my picture, but that's okay.
Yes, the photo of your conference, the one that you and Alec spearheaded in Milwaukee. But you went from blockchain into cleaning.
Yeah.
We'll dig into what you've learned about more of the blue collar, or I don't know how to put it, but
services business.
Okay, services. Yeah. Okay, so glad to have you. You've moved to Austin, and we were just talking about that offline. So tell me, you didn't move there permanently, but you went there for a while in order to get set up in the new city. Yeah, what went down?
Yeah, well, okay, so just for context, so I run an Airbnb cleaning business. Basically, it's exactly what you think. We clean Airbnbs after the guests check out, before the next guests come in. We started 4 years ago in Chicago and built the business up to about 120 listings that we clean for. About $1 million in revenue in Chicago. And then we just expanded to Austin, Texas in June. And I was down there for about a month getting the market set up, working with our ops manager. We moved down there, and we're all set up now. It's a lot more, expanding to a new market is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But that seems to be the case with most things in a business. You're like, how hard can it be? And then it ends up being harder than you think it would actually do. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So you went down there. Did you already have a manager that you were training and getting into place?
So I think this applies in every business, but your people, you don't have anything without your people. And the hard thing about in the cleaning business, and really any home services business specifically, is if you're not physically in the market that you're serving, you have to have somebody who you can trust to get the job done. And when stuff hits the fan, then you can rely on that person to just not, walk off the job or quit on you. And so, I ended up, we had someone who's been with us for a year in Chicago. She's an absolute rock star. And we ended up moving her down to Austin it's a really cool story because she's actually an immigrant. She's originally from Honduras. She came here, started with us as a cleaner a year ago. She kept moving up. And then I was like, hey, like, I think you would be a fantastic operations manager. Would you be interested in moving to Texas? And she's like, yeah. And so we promoted her to the operations manager. And then she moved down to Texas, and now we're up and running there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great story. And how many clients do you have now in Texas?
We have one client in Texas.
A big one?
No, it's a small one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so like we were just talking about out flying. We've been in Chicago for 4 years, so we have a lot of name recognition here.
Yep.
We don't, and most of the way people find you is through either Google, referrals, word of mouth, account growth. And so when you start out, you don't have any of that. So you just gotta do some of the really gritty guerrilla marketing to get your first couple clients. So, you know, we have one, we're working on a couple others. We'll eventually get there, but it's going to be a slow start.
Having recently moved to the Bay Area and having done a couple of bigger moves myself previously, I definitely realize how easy it is to undervalue the network that you have like today.
Yeah.
And how important it is to find existing networks when you get to a new place that can really help you expand your relationships and be more successful. But having an in
is so important. Having an in is so important.
Having an in. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that you guys continue to have some success there and find traction. You know, there's always a way and a path, and it sounds like you have a good plan and a good person.
At the beginning, it's always like you got to do like really, I call it guerrilla marketing, but you know, it's like guerrilla marketing / sales. You cold call people, you send them personalized video messages, you do the things that don't scale. And once you get a critical mass of people, you do a good job for them, they'll start referring you, and then it snowballs. But you got to get the first 4 or 5 clients, and we're not there yet in Austin because we just launched like a month and a half ago. So we will get there. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is a risky play you made. Generally, the advice on scaling is to continue within the geographic proximity, and you took a big jump into why Austin. And let's wrap it up with this question because we will do a follow-up interview later and see how this plays out.
Sure.
But yeah, why Austin?
Well, so first of all, it is risky from a financial standpoint. It's not risky in that we already have product market fit. I know that from being in business 4 years in Chicago.
Yeah. The
customers that we have here in Chicago have the same needs that potential customers in Austin have.
Yeah.
So it's risky from a financial standpoint and how long it takes to get up and running and profitable in the market. It's not risky in that, like, it's not like I don't know if there's going to be demand for the service that we offer. It's just a matter of getting in front of the people. So the reason Austin specifically is, one, it's a massive growing market. You see all these tech companies moving there, running away from California, and not all of them, but like a lot of them.
Yeah,
And so with that brings, you have a lot of money going in there, which means that you have a lot more people traveling. They also have a large leisure travel market. So you got a lot of bachelorette parties. You've got a lot of, you have these massive events, South by Southwest, Austin City Limits. And then the seasonality is actually a little bit reversed from Chicago. In Chicago, we're busy, May through October. Austin, you're actually busier on the shoulder months because it's super freaking hot in the summer. And you're busier in the shoulder months than in the winter. And so for revenue wise, once we're up at scale, it'll even things out a little bit for us. The other reason is geographically, it's relatively dense city. So a lot of the units are dense, you get a lot of efficiency, going between jobs. And then there's a pretty good labor base, and the cost of living is about 20% less than Chicago. There's more reasons, but I won't get into it. So all in all, kind of checked all the check box. So for us and making it a good market.
Yeah, great. best of luck with expansion in Austin. Maybe
Thank
we'll
you.
return to that. But right now, let's go back. So the reason I wanted to interview you is because you were an excellent student leader. You led the blockchain group. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that at
Yeah.
Marquette. And I knew you would go on to do something really great. I did not expect it to be a complete break from blockchain,
Yeah.
although I was very excited about that because similar to you, I really did nothing with software coming out of college and for years. I intentionally rejected it and wanted to get into these different businesses. But you did it at another level and found a company to, I loved your playbook. Anyway, so I wanted to interview you to say, tell us, how did you go from starting a student-run business, joining a student-run business organization? What did you learn there? Why did you decide to go somewhere totally different?
So, well, I started the blockchain lab at Marquette with you because we were already looking at doing something in blockchain. So just for context, this was 2017, I believe. And it was like my junior year. And for any of you who have been in crypto for a long time, that was like right after the big bull market crash. Like there was a huge crash at the January of 2017. And so I was there for that, but I was very, very interested in the fundamentals. And I think that's what a lot of people are interested in around decentralized, make smart contracts decentralized, rulemaking and, also the idea of like Bitcoin being kind of like a digital gold and all that. And so me and my business partner, we thought that it would be really interesting to create sort of an educational consulting type business around this. And so we started that. So yeah, I think the biggest thing we ended up putting on this blockchain conference at Northwestern Mutual in their headquarters, which in retrospect, like being 21 and like organizing this massive event, like I'm really surprised that not only did they let us do that, but like they put a ton of money like into this event, and we actually ended up making a good chunk of change off of it.
Yeah,
and
this is you can tell just from this little picture of one of the sides.
Yeah, that's the picture of the little blockchain thing.
You can tell that and this is like, one of the other students, Kat Christian, made the tree, right? And the blockchain signs. But you guys put on an amazing, it just played out in the venue is one of the best in the country as far as I'm concerned, especially for like a smaller city. It's super cool. And Northwestern Mutual was a great host. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention, just for record's sake, so my job at the time was I was the founding director or program leader at Marquette for the student-run business program. And I think, one thing to your point is it helps when you have the university supporting you. Not that you couldn't have done it on your own. I totally can see that happening. But, to your point about how much Northwestern Mutual put in, yeah, it really helps to just say, hey, we have some supervision here. And then they get a little more excited.
Yeah, otherwise they're just like, what are these kids doing? Like, it's just...
Yeah. But you made it work.
You feel like there's an adult in the room,
All you needed was some signatures, some support and advice or something periodically. But ultimately, you guys knew who to call. You knew what to put, on the program. You figured out the pricing and how to get everything and you made money on it, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was a crazy learning experience. I think like a couple takeaways from that. One, whenever you're starting anything, most of the roadblocks are in your head. I know it's like cheesy that it sounds, but like, I think the biggest thing I took away from after doing that was like, oh my God, like we can actually, it doesn't matter that we're 21 or 22 or whatever. Sure, people may look at you as kids, but at the end of the day, if you just put in the work, you're more likely to see results. And I think especially if you're a student, like playing into the role of like asking people advice, like, hey, I'm a college student. How would you do this? Like trying to learn and just showing people that you're really motivated and interested in their wisdom and expertise, play their ego a little bit. People will want to help you. Nothing beats just working your butt off and just doing it.
Speaking of which, just to like neatly package the business, What was, you mentioned earlier, it started out as consulting, right? The
Yeah.
Blockchain Lab did. What do you think is the most tidy way of describing the business model that worked at the end?
I think it was an events business at the end. So it started as consulting, but we realized that if we actually put on events, then we could get consulting deals out of that. And so really it was an events business with a consulting arm, if you will. In the events business, needed to make enough money to sustain itself. And then, you could generate these additional revenue opportunities from those events and from the attendees.
Yeah, that checks out. I liked the events angle too, because it made you more nimble in a world where there was a lot of chaos, a lot of change.
And it makes you doing the events makes you a subject matter expert in people's eyes. And so it builds your credibility. And so by hosting the events, you become an authority in this space. And then you can do all these other things. You have so many options to go from there. And so that's kind of why we've settled on that.
An easier business to manage too, probably, than consulting, because you have a little more regularity to it.
Yeah, like the revenue isn't as sporadic, and
Right. So you got the Blockchain Lab going, you pivoted, found your path to a nicer, tidier business model, a way to make money, do it consistently. It actually blew up. I think it's fair to say it was one of, if not the largest event of its kind in the Midwest, or the Chicago
it was,
area.
especially in 2020. Well, I think the event was actually in 2018, especially in 2018.
Yeah. Now, I think I remember, but why did this not continue to grow? And I think there are two main factors in my mind, but from your perspective.
Well, I graduated in 2018.
That is definitely the first biggest factor.
And so, with a business like this, I think it's harder because of how much effort it takes and how non-standard the events are. Like, it's harder to stand. Maybe we could have standardized it. But I feel like with the SRBs, the best kind of businesses are ones where you can create a playbook that anybody can replicate. And I think we hadn't kind of created a playbook for it. So I think when the people who had started it left, like, there was no really playbook for the other people to follow. And that's kind of what happened. But you were the one there, I wasn't there after. I just kind of
Okay. Well, I guess I'll comment then on, for the sake of the order, what I saw for the end of it. First of all, though, when I interviewed Seth Godin, which was the last interview for the series, one thing he pointed out is he thinks the best thing student-run business organizations can do is give students a chance to experiment and try a project. And he said it should have a start and an end. Its goal isn't to be the most profitable business in the world. And I would say this is a great example of the kind of opportunity that he was talking about.
Yeah, it was great for you guys. Amazing. Like, it was an absolutely phenomenal learning opportunity. I had to do sales. I had to hop on the calls with all these sponsors and convince them to give us, and we were asking for several $1,000s from each of them, which at the time I was like so nervous about asking for. And Northwestern, I think, put up like 10 to 15 grand. It was something ridiculous like that. And, we asked them to shell out all this money. And, you have to convince your team to, like, you got to get everyone organized to figure out what needs to be done and then make sure that people actually do it. You got to market to all the attendees. You got to make sure the same day, the day of logistics are figured out. You got to make sure you have enough money to put on the event before you get all the money. It's so much. And I think, like, that was like basically a mini, like, it was a mini company, essentially. That one event was like starting your own business. But
you got to cover the whole breadth.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be exciting to apply to your business now. The only other thing I'd say about it is that I think it was challenging because events, unless you get the right formula and you have a steady flow or a great cadence, then they create a lot of, like, sprints. But I don't think that's bad, and I think you guys did a good job. And another thing is we were moving it into metal, as I remember, and I was encouraging that because it was centering the events around emerging tech instead of just blockchain or crypto alone. And I think the benefit to that too is that you guys were seen as experts in blockchain and crypto, but when you leave, then everybody knows that the next person isn't really the same expert. So it helps to broaden things out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the challenges, is that not only was it an event business, not only do you have the standard key man risk, the founder is leaving and you got to get everything systematized, but also it was an area where you needed expertise, and an expertise that was hard to come by at the time. And then finally, I really think the wild card that makes it hard to say the experiment did or didn't work out altogether was COVID coming in. And because COVID walked out.
We last another year, I think, after I graduated, and then COVID happened in 2020, right?
Yeah. And we tried to make a digital pivot, but that was a lot. We had to do it for like 5 businesses at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's set that aside. You did the blockchain, great learning opportunity. Now tell me what you did next. I think, am I allowed to say that it led to some crazy, surprising results?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'd love you to share as much.
I completely, like, 360, 180, like, So
you went somewhere else. You had some, like, craziness happen. And then you applied your learnings to some brand new play that worked out.
That's right.
Tell me that short journey there.
Okay, so after I graduated, I ended up working for a mentor of mine that I met, who was a Marquette alum, at Technori. There's a podcast in Chicago. I think they were actually recently acquired. So I worked there for about 8 months. But at the time, they were partially owned by this billionaire who started a company called SMS Assist, which is property management consolidation company. Okay. And we worked out of his family office on 300 LaSalle in Chicago on the 60th floor. It was like a crazy experience. But I think the biggest, so working there, I already had the skills that I learned from the Marquette Blockchain Lab. And then I was looking at this podcast, completely different realm. I got to hear some of their conversations, and I learned that this guy made $1 billion by doing the most boring business, commercial property management services, maintenance contracts. This guy created a multi-billion-dollar company out of that, and
not blockchain,
not blockchain,
not crypto, not even SaaS.
The fundamental, the fundamentals are the same, which is that it doesn't matter what the businesses you're in. But what I learned is that there's way less competition in home services, property services, blue-collar businesses. And because, people, especially if you go to a really fancy university, you're kind of taught that you're going to go into more of a white-collar profession like accounting, venture capital, private equity, software, investment banking, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Finance, engineering, etc. And so you're not really thinking about these opportunities, which is a huge part of the economy. And so I went there, worked there for 8 months. Then I left, worked for a vacation rental property manager based out of Milwaukee. And that's where I learned about the Airbnb space. And then basically in March of 2020, right when COVID happened, I was in Milwaukee, in my apartment, I had all this time to think about it. And I was like, what if I take the insight from the guy who started SMS Assist, and that you can do really well in blue collar industries with my knowledge about the vacation rental space, and kind of build a cleaning business that's better than the existing solutions that are out there. And so I had that idea in March 2020. I actually we got our first customer in June or July of 2020.
Okay.
So we're about 4 years old now. So that was really the impetus. But actually the value prop of the business was based on price. So I thought we could, at the beginning, I was people are charging way too much. We can do it for less. I was completely wrong about that. And we've completely pivoted. And now our value prop is peace of mind. And we're actually at probably one of the most expensive cleaning companies for this for the specific service.
I think that's a really common journey. People getting into the service businesses think, or products even, but they think that they can undercut folks on price. And
You
you
just don't realize how
can, it's just you're
yeah,
going to kill yourself. And why do that when you could be a
you know,
premium? Yeah,
it's way better being a premium service because you can hire better people because you have the margins to support it. Which means your turnover is less, you're like less headache. Your clients are better. This is like the thing that I didn't really know until like a year in is that on the higher end of the market, the clients are actually easier to deal with.
right.
Like the best relationship I have with my clients is one where I don't hear from them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
That means they're happy and you're happy and everything's smooth. And
if there's no problem, I'm not going to hear from them. And that's okay.
yeah. And another common thing to say is that the more that you charge, the less you hear from people, the less they'll nitpick. I think is true. And
generally, yeah. I mean, sometimes, especially if you're raising prices, which is necessary in this crazy inflationary environment, if you raise prices, people will, depending on the person, will sometimes start scrutinizing things a little bit more because they're like, you're not offering an additional service and you're charging me 5% more, so I'm going to make sure you're doing a good job.
Right. Yeah, that's also a reason you can use tactics like, hey, this product is regularly priced at X, but for you we have the special at Y for now.
Yeah.
And then slowly you can increase the price that way without triggering that.
Yeah, that doesn't help though if you screw up at the beginning and way underprice yourself.
Okay.
Because you can't go back. You can't be like, oh, actually, I gave you a discount when we started, because that's not how I framed it.
Right.
So so long story short, like we had this like massive problem first year of business. Well, we had a lot of problems, but one of the biggest ones is I severely underpriced myself. So year 2, I had to raise our rates by like 30 to 40% on a lot of our customers. And that was really hard to stomach when they're accustomed to a certain rate. But you have to do it if you're trying to move in this luxury direction. And hire this
percent increase.
Yeah, it was really bad. And because I'm bootstrapped, I didn't have VC money to fall back on, so I had to make the margins to hire the support team that I made. So I didn't have a choice.
Right. Okay. So let me just step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Work on neatly packaging this, and then. What you said is that you got out of Marquette, you went and pursued still kind of this flashier area, leveraging your event experience, and you got a job at the studio, but working for, maybe indirectly, very wealthy person, billionaire, who had made his way in like a service industry space, and that opened your eyes to this new idea. So you sniffed out an opportunity there that lined up with your insight and said, let me experiment and try to make this happen. Meanwhile, you were working a job with somebody similar. And I mean, I just have to call out that you did eventually get fired from that job. I can edit it out if I need to, but
it's okay.
I think it's interesting. I've been there before a couple of times. It happens. And was that partially due to the fact that you were exploring or
yes,
your own company?
Actually, you can decide if you want to edit this out. I made an unwise decision to put my personal business events on the employer's calendar because I thought that they were hidden. Because I thought that the admins couldn't see. It just would say busy. But the details were actually shown if you're an admin on G Suite. It saw all of my
Let's set up some red flags.
But I want to add the caveat, which is I did my job, and actually a month before they let me go, they promoted me. And so
I think that's very common too. And I mentioned to you, I've had a similar experiences a couple of times where sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're getting the job done and exceeding expectations. If you send up red flags, people can't help but to be concerned about them and try to address them. And sometimes, there are dynamics that we'll never have the full story on that can compel them to ask you to change or leave.
Yeah. It's a startup environment. I think the management decided that if I already had my foot halfway out the door, that they needed someone who was 110% in.
Yeah. And that's common in startups. You want people to be all in with you. So anyway, totally at that point, not to like cut you off, but at
Yeah.
that point, then you said, okay, I guess I'm all in with this new business, right?
Yeah. So I had started the business in basically effectively in June of 2020. I left the company I was working for / got fired in September. So we weren't big enough for me to support myself. And yeah, I remember like I went on like a 2-hour walk after the call where they let me know. And I was like, okay, I have two options. I can either look for another job, or I've got 6 months of personal runway. I can go all in on this and give this my shot, and if it doesn't work out, I can go find a job. And I was like, screw it, I'm gonna try to grow this thing. Yeah, that's what I did. I mean, I won't lie, the first 2 years sucked like so hard. Like I had basically no money. Every month I was trying to figure out how to pay rent. And it's because I feel like in service businesses, you have to figure out the operating model. That's the biggest thing. Like how the data, how do you guarantee quality control? Like how do you hire? Like just all of these things. And
yeah, there's so much to figure out, and it takes so long.
And I had no experience hiring blue collar workers. Like I had no experience in this realm. And so I had to figure this all out while trying to generate enough cash flow to support myself.
Right.
And so it took about 2 years. And then what happened was the revenge travel of like late 2021, 2022 is what like catapulted us, when all this pent up travel money just came roaring out of nowhere. And like, that's really what catapulted us.
That's great. So the business, you described it before, but basically you go out and try to find property managers or owners, and you say to them, hey, you're on Airbnb, you do something similar to that. I will come in and our team will clean the space, flip it so the next person that stays has a good experience, and keep your ratings high. It's that simple.
Yeah. So our value proposition is like the number one problem guests and owners have in this space is cleanliness. It's because you got to get the unit clean not only on time between checkout and check-in, especially when you have same day turnovers, guests leaving at 11, guests coming in at 3 or 4. You got to get it done on time. You got to get it done properly, and you got to do it every single time consistently. And the biggest problem owners have and property managers is reliability. What happens if my cleaner decides not to come? And so what Turned solves for is we can work with property managers with multiple properties or single owners, but usually it's property managers with multiple properties. And we will guarantee that we're going to have the staff to get the property done correctly, on time, every single time. And we charge a premium price for it. Right. That's our value over hiring a random single cleaner.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's awesome. Who wouldn't want that peace of mind, like you said earlier, to know that you're going to do an excellent job, the machine's going to work well, and they can focus on other concerns like, do I want a different property? How should I set pricing? Things like this.
And figuring out how to do that was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
So you struggled for 2 years, you said.
Yeah.
You struggled to pay rent. That's probably when I remember once I came and crashed on your couch. Probably in the thick of that, if I remember correctly. You figured it out though, and now you're in excess or round about $1 million a year in revenue, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big milestone. That's huge, and I'm sure it's a huge relief to you to know that you've gotten the business to a size where you've considered selling it, but that's not currently your priority.
Not currently the plan. I mean, if somebody comes in and offers me way over market, I'll consider it. But
okay, we're open to over market offers, people. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, and how many customers do you have today again?
50.
50. Okay, so
we have 120 units that we clean for, though. So keep in mind, right? There are multiple units.
Yeah.
A customer might have multiple properties with us.
Right. Who's your biggest? How many? Properties? You don't, not who, but
12. I'm not gonna. Yeah, we have 12 with our largest.
All right.
So actually, one of my biggest initiatives now is working on our customer concentration. We do have some customer concentration, so we're starting to target smaller customers to diversify our customer base.
Awesome. Right. Yeah. That's always the challenge is you want to keep it. What's your target in terms of you don't want the largest customer to exceed X% of revenue?
I don't want our largest customer to be more than any one customer more than 10% of our business. And I don't want our top 5 to be more than 25% of our business.
Yeah. Awesome. Those are great targets that,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen, of course, and that having too much concentration can kill you quickly for a variety of reasons. But I want to be sensitive to your time. I know we said we could do a longer form interview sometime in the future, probably in
Yeah.
person. But before we go, if you could just give me like a list off the top of your head, what do you think are the top 5 things that you learned during your time in the SRB program that have helped you to succeed today or helped get you through those 2 tough years? And then if you can reflect, we'll reflect back and say, what would you do differently to better take advantage of the experience if you were there today? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say number one, network. I mean, everyone knows that, right? But like your network is, and if you can start building it in college, that's a huge asset to have.
Like, for example, how did that help you?
Well, it got me my first job outside of college. And I basically, because what happened is like I didn't really know what I was going to do after I left college, and I called up my mentor. I was like, "Hey, I don't know what to do." He's like, "You should work for me." I was like, "Cool, done." Like
you'd proven yourself to be a good
exactly, yeah, because and I think like, and it also helps you because if you're networking with people who are more experienced, you're going to learn from them. Like, if you regularly follow up with them, say like, "Hey, I'd love to get 30 minutes of your time. I'm thinking about this," and you send them a structured agenda beforehand to let them know that you care about their time and that you don't want to just, like waste their time. You can build up a really powerful network, and so it got me my first job. It also got me my second job because I heard about the job at the property management business through someone in my network, and I was already connected to the founder through a mutual connection.
I remember recommending you to.
Yeah, exactly. And I had some other people
I'm sure you had a few. You had a robust network, so several of us knew a couple of the people that hired you, and they talked to us about you.
With Turn, when I started, I'm the only owner, but I did take on debt. And the problem with traditional financing is it can kill you because of the interest rates and the payment terms. But I had a couple mentors who were extremely generous. They loaned me money. I paid interest on it, but it was very generous terms that with our cash flow, I could actually afford to pay it back.
Yeah. Wow. So the network got you both jobs, and then when you were starting your own company, it led to financing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a common story too, but that's huge. And it tells you that you really need to respect the relationships. And I think you did a great job with that. The ones that you build while you're in school. Okay. What's your second?
I'd say the second one is like, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like, and there's nothing like grit, and just doing it. Like the Shia LaBeouf thing, like just do it, right? Like it's sort of like, if you think of your goals as like a matter of time, and rather than just like if not, it's gonna happen. I found that really, I don't know. That's been really helpful for me.
It's a matter of time. So when it sucked for 2 years, and you thought frequently about quitting, I assume.
I thought like pretty much every day. I had one day like my entire team quit in one single day.
That one person quitting on you is awful.
I had
even if you know it's coming.
But it was like my entire team. They all quit on one day, and I remember lying down on my girlfriend's apartment floor and I just cried. I was like, what am I doing? Well, like, I was like, what am I doing in this business? I don't know anything about the cleaning business.
Yeah.
And Yeah, that was in 2021. It was really hard because of just the amount of demand and how many the unemployment rate was. I don't know if it was insanely
Scary
low.
times.
Yeah, it was tight for the labor market.
I see. It was
2021,
hard to find people,
2020.
is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
because there was all this demand just came back. So yeah, grit. I mean, and like, so when I get into moments, I think the only way out is through. That's how I think about it.
And how did like SRB teach you that? Like, was there a similar experience you had when you were doing the conference, for example, where you almost?
Yeah, because I knew that, I mean, the conference taught me was that because got to the end of it, like, so that you can do it, like, so that gave me the confidence to believe in myself that like, I know I can do this. I've done it. It's just a matter of time.
I've had to repeat that to myself often. It's like, hey, when I have set myself on things historically and been really serious and ignored all the times where I just was scared or wanted to quit for, reasons, any reason, if I stuck with it, something good happened.
Right. It's just like you pound your head against the wall. Eventually the wall will break, or your head. I don't know if it's the best analogy, but
you'll break through. You'll have a breakthrough.
That doesn't mean ignore the facts, but it means like grit is so underrated.
It means work through the obstacles until you find the way, whatever that way is.
It doesn't mean doing something that's not working, but it means work through the obstacles. Exactly.
Yeah, just keep going until you find the path. Once you've made you're a smart guy. Once you've made a good assessment, you've made a good decision, stick with it. All right, what's number 3?
So I think intelligence is, in my mind, is overrated, but curiosity and, like I said, grit are more important. Like me, like it didn't take me necessarily being smart to see what the guy who started SMS Assist was doing, and I don't think he's smarter than. He looked like your average, traditional blue collar guy that you think about.
Oh yeah,
like that was his entire attitude. Right. The guy was a billionaire. I just think he had some curiosity, kind of saw an opportunity, and he just worked his ass off.
With blockchain and things like this, not to say anything bad about the space or whatever, obviously it's worked out well for a lot of people and it will continue to do very interesting things. But your point is that a lot of the time, what really needs to happen is you roll up your sleeves and you do hard work on a very simple idea. Like, here's an opportunity. Let's make this happen. And you don't need to be that smart to get it done.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great lesson. I agree. I often reflect on what would somebody that was not as distracted by smart things, how would they approach this? Yeah. I try to think more simply about it. All right.
I don't know if this is like something I learned. Well, this is more like an insight. Having started this business and thinking back to my college years, this address to the people at the SRBA is like, most people who are going to be watching this are in an incredibly privileged position. It is so underrated. Like, the ability to even be in college and have 4 years where you don't have a lot of obligations and you can spend time on these things is insane, because the majority of people in the world don't have that opportunity. And so having, growing up in a middle-class family or wealthier or whatever, just being born into that level of privilege is an insane leg up on being able to start your business. Because if you never have those opportunities, you'll never be able to grow your network or learn the essential business skills that you need to start a business. And the majority of my team are immigrants, and I see just the vast difference in upbringing and how much of that has an impact on your life. You can certainly work around these things, but your life is 10 times easier if you have an edge in the birth lottery. And so I think,
and if you're listening to this, you probably have an edge.
Correct. Yes, is what I'm trying to say. I don't mean necessarily being born rich. I mean like you can even middle class, and just being able to go to college and not necessarily having to worry about all of your, how you're going to pay rent every single month in college.
And having access to this network.
Correct. It's insane. Like you're worldwide, and you're in the top. I don't know. Like I don't know the numbers, but you're really high up there.
If you can hustle, you can take advantage of this network, let alone any other network you're in, and that can give you an edge. You did an excellent job making the most out of that. So not to be a stickler on this, but I'd say we have 4 things so far. 1 was network, 2 was grid, 3 is curiosity and not being too smart, and then 4 is what we just covered now.
Recognize your privilege.
Recognizing the privilege that you have. So what's number 5? What's the biggest lesson?
Never underestimate playing to people's egos. And I'll give you a little story. One of the most genius things I think we did at the Blockchain Lab and also at Technori, where I worked afterwards, on selling people was the classic, you ask them for advice. I think for most of those people, I just talked about hey, I have this vision. It wasn't until they already sold themselves that I asked for commitments. But I never I only said hey, I want to do this thing. How would you do that if it were you? And you get them thinking about how they would achieve your vision. Mm. And so then they think it's their idea, and then they're sold on it. They get excited about it, and then you ask them for money. So
that is such a great lesson. It's another one of these things where everybody has probably learned that at some point, but you forget to apply it. And if you don't apply it, it's harder.
Yeah. And then the other example is Technori. My boss had a genius way of selling people. We had a podcast, right? And it was about founders. And so we would get founders on the podcast, and we'd spend the entire time talking about their business. But while you're doing that, you can you're getting an understanding of their pain points and problems. And we had a solution that was geared towards tech founders. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that, you're hey, I heard you talk about this problem. Maybe I think we can help out with that. Would you be interested in giving us a shot? This is different than cold calling them. You've invited them on a podcast. You've given them value by talking about their business, and you're going to advertise for them for free. But in doing that, you're actually doing sales discovery. And so you don't sound like a slimy salesman when you ask them, because you're I want to help you. You just told me about your problems.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a great lesson there. Okay. The last thing that you have is you're in the shoes of an SRB student today. How do you do it differently? Is there anything that you do differently? Is there anything you lean into? I mean, it's worked out well. So
if I had the opportunity, and I know the Bloom Gold Ventures was early, but if I were at Harvard, because I went to the conference, ever at Harvard or Stanford, one of these other more established, or Cornell, one of these more established organizations with more structure, I would try to get to the top of whatever organization, specific business you're in. So you have that on your resume, and you're also learning. I would leverage the crap out of that to connect with as many alumni as possible, and ask them for their wisdom. It's not how I would do it differently. I would just have more focus in what I was already doing, because I was just throwing things at the wall. Yeah. So I would leverage the crap out of it, and it depends on what your career objectives are. If you want to work in private equity or something like that, network with those people. But you could basically use it to create credibility for yourself, so people don't think you're some 21-year-old who doesn't know anything and you're just out getting drunk every night. Right. And you use that, and then you basically ask for advice from all these alumni or other people to get book meetings, and then you leverage that into whatever job opportunity. Or if you're trying to start a business, you do that with potential customer. You can do it with potential customers. You can do it with whoever. But you kind of leverage that, the brand and your experience working there, to learn the fundamentals and then use that to network. That's how I would do it.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Davis. I neglected to mention at the beginning, but thank you for serving as a board member for the SRBA as well. We do hope to see you at the conference this fall, and hope to have some news in that regard coming up. And I'll be in Milwaukee in a couple weeks, so I'll give you a shout out if you happen to be around. Otherwise, we'll see each other soon.
All right.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.